Yeah, so there's a rise now in private equity groups that are now funding the people that get hit. So if you get involved in a truck accident and you're getting sued as the carrier, there's a really good chance that it's not even the person that you hit that is funding the lawyer. It's a private equity group that has figured out that they get a better and quicker return on their investment if they hire the lawyer to go after you. I'm not quite sure how that's legal, but it's happening.
Sam, welcome to the BulkLoads podcast.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
This has been a long time in the making. Yeah. I've been pushing you to come down here, and you graciously accepted and finally came down, and you've been spending the whole day with us, and it's been awesome. Yeah,
it's been a blast. You know, it's just far enough away from me where you have to kind of think about it, but it's a great drive. Yeah, it's a great, and this is a great town. So yeah, it's thank you for inviting me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we've covered some of this stuff earlier today, and I want to kind of resurface it because I think what we talked about today was such gold, and that's why I want to get it onto this broadcast and talk about it. You've been in trucking how long?
I've been in trucking my entire life. But I've been working in it for about 25 years. But my dad was a former truck driver, got out of the truck when I was born, went into the operations department of various trucking companies, got up to director of operations, VP level stuff, and brought me along for the ride, whether I wanted to go or not. But then in late 1990s, I jumped into trucking myself and I've been in it ever since.
Yeah. And you've worked in several different roles, but originally more on the operations side, right?
Yeah. I come from an operations background. So I started off dispatching like pretty much everyone does, and then kind of worked my way around. I've done accounting. I've even done IT, which there's a reason I'm not in those departments anymore. But I've pretty much worked in every office job that a trucking company has, and I've now settled on safety and compliance.
So how long have you been around kind of the safety component of trucking?
I've probably been around the safety component for probably about 10 years now, in various states. I've worked for some small trucking companies where you kind of wear a lot of hats, and safety and compliance is one of them. And then I've really focused in on safety and compliance full time here now, for the last handful of years, and just basically spent my time in that. But I've been around it for at least 10 years in the operations departments.
Yeah. Well, you know a little bit about our story, and a lot of our members know our story, but you know, I started in trucking on the freight side, you know, dispatching, finding trucks and all that. I've never really dabbled with, I drove a truck for a little bit, but never dabbled with like the safety compliance piece. But to my surprise, even 4 or 5 years ago, when we started our insurance piece, just starting to realize some of these premiums up and some of the mistakes, well, I shouldn't say mistakes, but like how much just better safety programs could help insurance and help a company survive. We can camp out and talk about, it's not just about saving money, but saving lives when it comes down to it. But I want to talk about this topic. And again, it's not super sexy probably to a lot of people. This isn't something that, you talk about safety. We can talk about freight rates and deregulation type stuff and that stuff, but like, I want people to tune into this one because I am super passionate about like, if we can help people in any, in our industry, it doesn't matter whether we're helping them find a load or we're helping them with their insurance or safety, it all works together, right? And as safety, obviously in any shape or form is got to be number one.
Right. Well, first off, because I'm in safety means it is sexy. Okay. So we're just going to say that, but it's funny you say that because I was just having a conversation with a guy yesterday about kind of what you're talking about there, about how the entire organization needs to know how it works, and I think that's one disservice that happens to a lot of these new people that come into it is that if you come into a dispatch role, because that seems to be the entry level position now, which is kind of weird because you have to know a lot of stuff to be a good dispatcher, but we won't get into that right now. But if you just come in a dispatch role, you have to know where that load came from. Like if you want to be a good dispatcher, how did that load get on your board that you are now sending out to a driver? And then once that driver finishes that load, what happens to the paperwork? Do they even know that there's a thing called a bill of lading out there that they need to send in? And who does that go to? And just the more you understand the process of how trucking works, the better you're going to be in this industry. And I think that's probably true for most industries out there, but it just seems to be, from what I have seen, a lot of people don't take the time to learn the process. How do you even hire a driver? What kind of criteria do you look for and bring them in? How do you do that? And then get them in a truck, have them there's a long process with it. And one of the big components with that process is how do you do everything safely? And so that's what I try to teach various companies, is that safety has to be the foundation of your company, that you can build your operations and your accounting department on top of your safety foundation. And I truly believe that, because if safety isn't your foundation, your company is built on the sand. If you get the Bible reference, but you got to put it on the rock. And a lot of times, I get it, operations makes money. It might be a little more sexier, but if you don't have that foundation of safety, that could crumble. If you get into one bad traffic accident, if you get one bad DOT inspection and you have no safety underneath of you, man, now all of a sudden you're looking at conditional ratings, unsatisfactory ratings, you're looking at hefty fines, you're looking at insurance rate hikes, and you're looking at just flat out getting put out of business. Like if it's a bad enough violation, you might not have a company when it's all said and done. So that's why I always preach to the guys, build all of your company on top of a safety foundation. If safety is in your mind when you're booking loads, if safety is in your mind when hiring drivers, if safety is in your mind even while billing loads and making sure that we're doing all that stuff right, you're going to have a successful company. I truly believe that.
I think, like myself, even started a business, and again, it wasn't owning trucks, but a lot of guys, they start in trucking. I've learned this over the years because, they were a driver. They go out and go get their own authority and get started. Again, they maybe buy another truck, you got a couple drivers. Now they got 5 trucks, 10 trucks. I'm pretty sure a lot of them probably don't even think about a safety program. And even when I say a safety program, I almost get like anxiety thinking about that. And but talk about like what's real. When you talk about like creating a safety program, because if correct me if I'm wrong, by law you have to have a safety program, right?
Yeah, I mean you have to have basics of a safety program. I call it a safety program. Some people might call it something different.
And we're gonna talk about this because there's even like DOT audits, right? But that's because they're wanting to see.
They're wanting to see your safety foundation of what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And so, you're exactly right. A lot of the companies I deal with is that exact scenario. A guy had a truck, did very well for himself, bought a second one, bought a third one. Now all of a sudden he's got a fleet of 10 and he doesn't know what to do when it comes to, driver qualification files, vehicle maintenance reports. Are your guys doing pre-trips and post-trips? He doesn't know. He's a driver. He drives well. He operates his company well. But there's that piece of safety in the background that not a lot of companies understand. And so that's what I try to teach them. And if an auditor does come in, like I said, they're going to want to look at that foundation. Do you have driver qualification files? And are they compliant? Do you have, even the application in there? You need to have that. Med cards, licenses, drug screens, pre-employment drug screens. All that stuff has to go into your driver qualification file. And if you don't have that, already right off the bat, we're out of compliance. If you don't have everything that needs to be in there. I know I'm forgetting a couple in there, but already you're out of compliance. Okay, so you got that one. Now, are you running e-logs? Is anyone monitoring the e-logs? Are your guys running compliantly out there? Are they running the 11 hours? Are they, taking the proper breaks? Well, again, a lot of times they're not monitoring that stuff because they're in the truck themselves, or they didn't know that you can't use PC, personal conveyance, in certain situations. What I run into a lot with a lot of companies is that they don't know what they don't know, if that makes any sense. Like, they know how to make money. They know how to get the trucks down the road. They know how to find freight, but they don't know that they needed to have this all back end stuff in place, the DQ files, the vehicle maintenance files, things like that. And so I try to come in and help them say, again, get that foundation in place and build your company on top of it. Now, the nice thing is, if you already have a company out there and no foundation, we can pour a foundation as long as it's not too late, as long as you're not already, in unsatisfactory conditions with the FMCSA, we can pour that foundation and put the building on top of it. But it requires you to actually stop what you're doing, not physically stop the trucks, but like it requires concentration and making sure that you're doing everything properly and monitoring everything that we have now put in place, putting the right policies in place. Do you have a driver handbook? Do you have a driver discipline policy? I mean, a lot of guys don't because it's just their buddies driving along. Okay, but what happens when your buddy does have like 4 or 5 violations and insurance companies come calling, or the FMCSA comes to call and says, hey, this driver is actually costing you a ton of money and you didn't do anything to discipline him. What are you going to do about it? It's just all that stuff that you hope you never really have to utilize. You still need it in your back pocket so that if you ever do need to utilize it, you have it there. And unfortunately, a lot of new companies don't set that up, and then they're kind of scrambling when it comes to, the actual discipline time or correction time, because they don't have anything in place. And, you can make some drivers real angry that way because they say, well, you're disciplining me, but you don't have a policy on that. They'll come back with that stuff too. So it's always, 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 you need to get that foundation of safety in there so that you can at least have that to stand on when you need to ever use it.
You said this earlier today that a lot of these companies are running illegally and don't even know it.
Yeah. Yeah. Or even worse, some of them are running illegally and they do know it.
Okay. Yeah, I think you said something like that. It's like, they do it until they get caught.
Yeah. Yeah. That's usually, when you say a safety program, that's usually a lot of companies' response is that, well, I haven't gotten to a crash, so we're safe. And it's like, no. That has nothing. That's very little to do with what a true safety program is. There's a ton of trucking companies out there that have never gotten to in a serious accident that are really unsafe, because they don't have any of those policies in place. They don't have a thorough driver qualification file. You would be shocked, maybe not you, but some people might be shocked at how many drivers are out there on the road that aren't qualified to be out there on the road. I don't have exact numbers in front of us because no one really keeps track of that stat. But from what I have seen when auditing different companies, there's quite a few drivers out there that really shouldn't be out on the road, that aren't qualified. They might not have the right CDL license. They might not have a valid med card. They might have some drug and alcohol issues that is, not letting them be on the road, but they're still out there. So, if you don't know that you're in violation, that's something that, okay, we can at least fix that. You bring in a safety person, they audit it, you take a look, okay, hey, well, let's get that fixed. It's the people that are out there that know that they're not in compliance. Those are the ones that kind of scare me and the ones that really need to be looked at. But again, I don't know exactly how you pinpoint them, because they're really good at not getting into trouble. So, but it is a problem out there in the trucking industry. And, I don't know if FMCSA is going to take a look at it or if we just need like a 1-800 hotline or something like, hey, I don't think this guy should be out here.
Well, good, bad, or indifferent. You said the FMCSA is severely understaffed right now.
Yep.
And even actually, I have a lot to unpack here, but explain this to our audience, people that don't know, but you always hear, DOT audit,
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get a DOT audit or it comes through. So how is an audit? Like if I can get audited for my taxes. Like if they see something that doesn't look right,
Yep.
I'm knocking on wood that doesn't happen, but but it's the same thing for, you can get a DOT audit. Something may trigger for the FMCSA to come out, but walk us through, what is that process? What happens?
Yeah. So there's really kind of two big reasons why you're going to get a DOT audit. The first big one is in the safety world, in the CSA world, compliance, safety, and accountability is what it stands for. It's the system that the FMCSA has put in so that it can monitor if trucking companies are good. Every trucking company has a CSA score. They might not know how to check it. They might not know what it is, but you have one. But the FMCSA will look at those scores and determine whether or not you are a company that's at risk or whether or not you're running well. In the CSA, there's 7 different categories, and it's I would list them out here, but I know I'd forget one and then I'd look like a fool on your podcast. But there's 7 categories, unsafe driving, vehicle maintenance, stuff like that. And each one of those categories has a threshold. Like you can't be over this percentage of violations, which again, that's a whole nother podcast we can get into. Let's just say you have one category that's over the threshold that FMCSA deems is too high.
And these are violations, whether you're, going through a scale house.
Yep. Roadside violations, going through a scale house, getting pulled
ticket.
Over. Yep. Accidents, get into an accident.
Fender benders.
All of this stuff gets reported by the officers to the FMCSA. You can't get out of it. And so if you have one category that's over, probably won't look at you. 2 categories, you might start popping up on the radar. If you're over on 3 of the 7 categories, you're probably going to get a letter in the mail saying either A, watch it, or B, we're going to take a look at you. That's the most common way to get an audit, is if you are just neglecting your safety categories. The other way is, again, to a big accident. That will sometimes trigger an audit as well. But most likely it's going to come from you just not paying attention to your CSA scores. So if they deem that you're going to be audited, a lot of times since the time of COVID, you can call it an invention if you want, but that's, again, another podcast.
That's another show.
Since COVID, they have been doing a lot more what they call offline audits, which means they're not even coming out to you anymore. It used to be they say, hey, we're coming out on this time and have this stuff ready. Now they're sending you an email or a letter saying, hey, send us this stuff, and you got 48 hours to
send
do it.
all this stuff in electronically.
Yep, PDF. Yep, send it over and we'll take a look at it. So now, it used to be where you had just a little bit of wiggle room time to say, okay, well, they're coming in 2 weeks or whatever, like, get this stuff in order. Now it's saying, hey, you got 48 hours to send them everything. That's usually not enough time to produce stuff. You know what I mean? So that is kind of catching a lot of these guys too, is that if you don't have, like I said, your foundation of safety, you can't send them that stuff in an orderly fashion. And usually the ones that are getting audited, not all the time, there's some good companies out there that get audited, but usually if you're getting audited, it's because you're skipping stuff and you don't have that foundation. So, but yeah, that's when it gets tough, is when you need to send them all that stuff in a quick fashion and you just don't have it and you can't get it. And, because maybe you don't have MVRs, maybe you don't have a copy of the CDL, maybe he doesn't even have a CDL, then that's when trucking companies really get into trouble with that.
And the same token, insurance companies, they're looking at the same data.
It's all public. I can pull it up on my phone right now and check any company you want. I could see exactly how safe they are. I can't get some of the details. If you want details, like if you have the portal, the FMCSA has a portal, if you have the login information for a trucking company, you could see which driver is speeding or got a violation. You could see all that.
Every trucking company can see their own, that information.
Yep. You have to be able to log into the portal, which, again, that's usually sometimes a problem too, because it's government. They'll send you in the mail your password to the portal. A lot of times owners don't even pay attention to it. They throw it away. Then you have to request a new one because, of course, it's the government. They can't just email you. So, but if you have access to the portal, like, you can see all that. But even without access to the portal, I could go on and take a look at any trucking company in America and see how many violations they've gotten, how many times they've gotten pulled over for speeding. I just can't tell you who it was and what truck it was. But it's all public information. And that I don't think a lot of companies understand either, is that, when it comes to like insurance renewal times and like, how does the insurance company know all this stuff? It's public information. Like, you go onto a website, anybody can see it. So you're not hiding anything. You can't hide anything. Like I said, when it comes to violations, it's not like you have to submit your ticket to the officer writing the ticket will send it in. So you're not going to get away with anything. So, and it's all public. So when it comes to safety, you got to make sure you have it buttoned up, because everybody's going to look at it. The insurance is going to look at it. The FMCSA is going to look at it.
But even shippers and brokers that you're hauling for.
Shippers and brokers are going to look at it. And, if you do go through an audit and you get a conditional rating, which means there's 3 ratings. There's satisfactory, conditional, and then unsatisfactory. If you're in that conditional rating, it's not the kiss of death, but it's really close to it. Because all of a sudden now your insurance is going to go up, brokers and shippers are going to stop working with you, financing is going to dry up, you can't get loans from the bank, because what that is telling everybody that you want to work with is that you're a risky company. And nowadays, no one wants to work with a risky company. So they want to make sure that you're satisfactory. So if you get to that conditional rating, now you got even more work ahead of you to get back to satisfactory while still trying to run a trucking company and not lose customers and brokers and all that kind of stuff.
Hey guys, Jared Flynn. Thank you so much for listening to the BulkLoads podcast. Many of y'all may not know, but we started a permitting business and insurance business. We know that many of you are in different stages of your life, and we want to simplify and take those friction points away from you. So if you have interest in permitting, allowing a company to take care of your IFTA reporting, all your tax documents, all the back end work that, quite frankly, I don't like doing, and I subcontract out to other people's
to do, we want to do for you. So if you get a chance, click the permitting link below and you'll be directed to that. And then on top of that, we also offer commercial truck insurance. We represent really good truck insurance markets to give you the most affordable and best price on insurance. So we know insurance rates are climbing. We know every year at renewal times, people are sticker shocked to see the renewals. We want to walk you through that process, give you a better experience, and hopefully better affordable coverage. So go ahead and click the link below for Bulk Insurance Group. Let us quote your insurance for you. Thank you and God bless.
So we've been pretty doom and gloom so far, but we have a solution. There's help. Yeah. And I'm going to say this, and maybe you're going to correct me. It's not as hard as you think.
It's not as hard as you think.
This isn't as hard to solve as you think, and you don't have to be looking at paperwork, filling out forms and all that. Like, you've created solutions yourself, Sam, that really simplifies this process for owner operators. I mean, small fleets, larger fleets of different sizes. But yeah, talk about specifically kind of what you've now created and have done in the past to really help solve this problem.
Sure. So you're exactly right. It's not hard to correct the ship. Now, maybe if you're talking about a major carrier with thousands of trucks, that's a little bit more, but that's turning into the Titanic. But usually we're talking about tugboats and bass fishing boats. You can turn those things around pretty quickly.
A couple trucks, 5 trucks, 10 trucks.
Exactly. Yeah. 5, 10, 50, even 30, 40 trucks. It just takes a little effort. You have to make the effort to do so. And when I say effort, it means you have to put policies and procedures in place, and then you have to follow up on them. And if you're having issues with drivers not following those procedures, let's say, you're having problems with speeding. So you say, hey, look, guys, we're going to put, if you get a speeding violation, we're going to fine you $200, and then follow through with that. Like, make sure that the drivers understand that there's going to be consequences to violating the company's policies and procedures. That's what I mean. It's not difficult. But here's the other thing too. It takes time. And that's something that a lot of times trucking companies just don't have the patience for. There's not a magic bullet to fix a CSA score. It's like a credit score. You just have to work at it over time. And over time, it will drop. If you're monitoring it and putting the right policies in place, it will drop. But it just takes time and it takes effort. And sometimes that's a lot to ask for some people. And quite frankly, with the small companies, a lot of times the owners are in trucks themselves. They're out there driving. So it takes time away from them trying to drive too. So that's where it helps out, maybe bringing in an outside safety person to take a look at it and just being kind of that quote unquote bad guy and enforcing all that stuff and monitoring it. So one of the things that I've done is I've created a subscription service that will help you kind of understand what to do, how to do it, and then you can ask me for help in the process with it too. So I've created some online classes. I've created a whole library of documents, safety documents. And then I also give you my text number. And if you subscribe to my subscription service, you get all that. So you know what to do, but if you still have questions, you can ask me.
Yeah. And then even outside of that, for people that want you to come out, and you've done this even with some of our members, you can go out and even one-on-one work with that company, go visit them, view documents. But I guess I'm thinking just for that, again, going back to that 5, 10 truck guy, he's driving. Like, I don't want to mess with safety. I know that, I don't want to admit it, but I know that I probably need to clean it up. Yeah. Like, I need some attention over here. How can you all help that company with as little friction as possible?
Sure. Well, the nice thing with those little companies is that,
and I don't say little, just,
sure. The nice
that's
thing
a decent company.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're not talking. Yeah. The nice thing with, quite frankly, is the typical trucking company in America, because I forget what the exact stat is, but it's like over 90% of them are 10 trucks and under. So that is my bread and butter. Those are the guys that I want to help out with the most because, again, they usually don't have the resources to do it. And that's where guys like me can help them out. But again, with that stuff, it usually isn't very difficult. It's what I have done is I'll typically go in and do an audit. Basically, I'll do exactly what the FMCSA will do, but there won't be any harsh consequences that come along with it. And just see, where are we at? That's ultimately one of the biggest things too, is that you have to just kind of look yourself in the mirror and say, what are we doing here? What's screwed up? Where's rock bottom?
And real quick, just so people know, because I'd be asking this question if I'm hearing this right now. To do that, you kind of have like an hourly rate or something. I mean, just kind of ballpark.
Yeah.
Like if you, because obviously you got to get compensated for your time and travel, and
great.
usually it takes sometimes a day maybe to go through.
Typically a day. Yeah. So typically a day. So if you need an audit or something like that, I'll probably just charge you one big package rate, which isn't really too much. Depending on how many trucks you got, how far we got to go, stuff like that. It's very reasonable. But yeah, it's usually just a package rate. So you can call me or email me, and I can kind of put that together, and you can take a look at it. But, with that, when I come out there, like I said, I'm going to do everything the DOT will do, or the FMCSA. We're going to take a look at your driver files. We're going to take a look at vehicle files, drug tests, all that kind of stuff, and just get a realistic picture. Where are we at? What do we need to do? I did.
And if there's no files at all, you can start
that's step one. Okay. We need some files. All right, guys.
Let's start building these files.
Let's again. We can start pouring that foundation, but we need to know that there is no foundation there. That's kind of and I get it. Trucking company owners, that's their baby. Like, I get it. So like they always want to paint you a really good picture. I don't want that picture though. I want to see what's real, because FMCSA doesn't care about your picture either. So I want to be able to go in there and say, we're going to do this because this is what you need. Yeah, I know you think you're doing that, or okay, you're doing this fine, but we still have this massive gap or this massive risk that we need to button up. I do a lot of audits, and I'll say a lot of the audits I do, 80% of the company is fine. Like, they're doing good, but there's always 20%. There's always 20%.
Where's that 20% typically lie?
Typically, it lies in driver qualification files, because what I see happen.
What is that?
So driver qualification. So if you bring in a new driver, you hire on a new driver.
Yep.
They need to have
some guy. My buddy's interested. Brand new guy gets hired on.
Well, here's the kicker too. This is the one I see a lot of too. If the owner is a driver, they need a driver qualification file too. A lot of times owners will say, well, I own the company. I'm like, yeah, FMCSA doesn't care. They want your driver qualification file. They want to make sure you should be behind the wheel of your own truck.
So what's all in that file?
So there's a handful of things that go into that file. Like I said, you have to have their application. Basically, the driver qualification file is just the way to know that the driver in the truck is who they say they are and that they're qualified to be in the truck. So application needs to be in there, driver's license, med card, pre-employment drug screening needs to be in there, the MVR, motor vehicle report, needs to be in there. And then there's a couple consent forms also that need to be in there. But that's everything of that needs to be stored either in a paper file, or I prefer them to be in a digital file.
Yeah, that was something you said earlier too that I thought was interesting to make sure. And today it's easier than ever, but also have a digital file of all this.
Yeah, you kind of, I almost think you almost have to. And the nice thing is there's the nice thing with that is then you can kind of monitor it. You don't have to go back through paper files. Like, you got it right there. Like, hey, when's that MVR expire? Boom, right there. We got that. Or driver or license or stuff like that. Like, instead of having to go through the file cabinet, you got it there. And then, put it on a server, and then should the company burn down, we still got all our files, but that's just maybe the millennial in me talking.
But I picture this though. I mean, it's showing that you're doing your due diligence when hiring someone. So if something were to happen, it's like, hey, this guy checked all the boxes. I mean,
and that's what they're going to look for. Like, if the FMCSA, or here's the other thing, and we haven't really talked about this, and we don't have probably time to get into it, but like lawyers, okay, that's what lawyers are going to look for too. If you get into an accident and it is your fault, even if it's not your fault, if you got hit, you're probably going to get lawyers coming in and looking at you. I forget what the exact stat is off the top of my head, but it's something like, even up to like 5 years ago, 20% of accidents, now again, don't quote me, I'm ballparking this right now, but like 20% of accidents ended in some sort of legal transaction. Nowadays, it's up to like over 80% of anything involving a commercial motor vehicle is going to end in some sort of legal battle. So I have seen times where trucking companies have been completely in the right, but still make a settlement payment just to make it go away.
Yeah. But you're saying a lot of them, it's not even the person that got hit.
Yeah, so there's a rise now in private equity groups that are now funding the people that get hit. So if you get involved in a truck accident and you're getting sued as the carrier, there's a really good chance that it's not even the person that you hit that is funding the lawyer. It's a private equity group that has figured out that they get a better and quicker return on their investment if they hire the lawyer to go after you. I'm not quite sure how that's legal, but it's happening. And here's one of the things that you have to remember too, as a driver or as an owner of a company. It's not required, but you gotta have dash cams in your trucks, because that will save you a lot when it comes to the litigation time too as well. Especially when, like, if you have someone that says, oh, my neck is hurt, my back is hurt, any sort of soft tissue injury, if you have a dash cam and, like, let's say you rear-ended them or whatever, which is typically what happens, and they get out and they're walking around just fine, that's all evidence that could be used to your advantage. So even though it's not required to have a dash cam, if you don't, you're already behind the 8 ball in this day and age. One of my biggest complaints that I've always had in trucking, because again, I grew up in trucking. One of my first jobs ever inside was actually converting paper logs into digital logs. So you put it on this big, like, drawing board, and then you tap it with a pen to convert it all to digital. And one of my biggest complaints since that time was that technology is not keeping up with trucking. That has now completely changed. Technology has gotten so advanced with trucking. We now have so much data out there that we can monitor that there's actually times when it can actually be a hindrance to have as much data as we do have. And that's why I always go back to monitoring. If you're not going to monitor something when it comes to safety and compliance, and it's not necessarily required, then I wouldn't do it. So one of the big one of the big debates I've gotten into with people is in-cab audio. Should you be recording what the driver is saying? And I've talked with lawyers on this, I've talked with insurance people on this, and they said, if you have someone that will monitor the audio, meaning that they'll actively listen to it on a fairly regular basis, then yes, you should have it in there. But if you don't have anyone to do that, don't do it. Don't record anything. Just
because you're not improving.
All you're going to do is hurt yourself. So same thing with dash cams. You got to have the outward facing, but we can get into a debate about inward facing. But if you're going to have inward facing, make sure that you have someone that's auditing that footage, so that you know that, hey, this guy got into an accident, a road rage accident. Well, we've had 5 other incidences of him having road rage that we just never monitored. But the lawyers will say, well, you clearly had a pattern of a road rage guy here. Why didn't you do anything about it? And if your answer is, well, I don't know, you're sunk.
Is safety not being as monitored as much with as many drivers as it was back in the 80s and 90s? Or is it?
We just didn't have the technology back then. I mean, we didn't have dash cams. We didn't have electronic logs. We didn't have, we couldn't see where they're at.
Regulations.
We didn't, quite frankly. And no one was really paying attention to them. I mean, the new FMCSA laws didn't really come out till the early 2000s. So, I mean, we were kind of in no man's land. The laws that were in place in the 80s and 90s, most of them were written back in the 30s, and we were just kind of freewheeling up until then. And again, we didn't have the technology in place. That's back in the day. You go to a truck stop, you have, 50 payphones. The guys that put the quarter in, call the dispatch. All right, I'm headed out to Utah. Okay, call me in 3 days when you're there. And that was it. Maybe you have a check-in every morning, but the technology is what has really changed. That has made everything a lot more manageable and monitorable. I don't know if that's a word, but it's made things a lot easier to keep track of versus back in those old days.
More technology and we're not necessarily as safe.
We just know we're not as safe now.
We just know. Yeah, that's because one thing, and I've heard this in the past, you talk about attorneys and lawyers and stuff like that. It's like, well, that's why I have insurance.
Yeah.
What'd be your response to that?
They don't care. Here's the.
But insurance is going to cover it, right?
No, it's not. I mean, theoretically, yes, insurance is going to cover the damages, but what the lawyers are going to go after here now is all the issues with the driver. And if the lawyer can prove that your driver who was in that truck shouldn't have been in that truck, then they've got a case against you. Like, I understand insurance is great and it protects you in a lot of stuff, but we've gotten to the point now in this society where if the lawyer can prove that you shouldn't have been there at that time, then they've got a case against you. I've even seen where I was working with a company and their truck got hit by a car. Like, the car literally hit the truck and everything was good on the driver.
Yeah.
It was fine. But what they found out was that driver was driving using personal conveyance when he should have been in driving. And the lawyer figured it out that, hey, if he wouldn't have been doing that, he wouldn't have been in that spot and my guy wouldn't have hit him. And the trucking company lost that argument. That's how good lawyers have gotten lately. So that's why I say you need to have that foundation, because the FMCSA is going to look at it, insurance is going to look at it, and lawyers are going to definitely look at it. And they know exactly what to look for too.
Yeah. We're dumping a lot of information, but I think this stuff is so important in gold. Talk about the driver files. What are some of the other things that make up that safety file, safety component?
One thing that a lot of people kind of neglect is that vehicle maintenance needs to be in a part of your safety as well. You got to make sure that
driver files, vehicle maintenance.
Yep. You got to make sure that
trucks, trailers.
Yep. All that stuff. They have to have their annual inspections, stuff like that. You need to have your pre-trip and post-trips done. Make sure that your drivers do those, because
Do you have to have those documented?
Yeah. So here's the deal. ELD providers, electronic login providers, will typically have a spot on there for pre-trip and post-trip. One of them is required by law. Typically, a lot of people will say the pre-trip is required by law. Technically, you just have to do an inspection around the truck, but 98% of the people will do a thorough pre-trip. That is required. That is a rule. I always tell guys to do a post trip too, because here's the deal. If you're
that show, I mean, I don't know, and probably people listening are like, yeah, Jared, we know how to do this, but that shows up in your file. Like you have to have a file. Of that?
It won't show. So it won't show up in your file. No, but it is a requirement to do, like when it comes to vehicle maintenance. And the reason why I say it is because if you have a vehicle out there that is deemed unsafe, like you can't drive that anymore. Like, so you need to make sure that the vehicles that you're putting out there on the road are safe. That needs to be in the file. And if you do have, let's say,
what do you mean? But it's sorry, I'm getting
no,
you like how. What do you put in the file to show that vehicle is safe?
So so you have your annual inspection. That's your biggest one. But the one that a lot of people miss is that, let's say you do a pre-trip and you have a bad tire, or not even a pre-trip, because it doesn't work with the pre-trip. Let's say you're at a roadside inspection, you get put out of service for brake issues, tire issues, whatever. If you have someone come out and fix it, which you need to make sure that you have the documentation, the receipt, the invoice, or whatever, put in the file of that truck to show that you closed that loop on that vehicle. Now that vehicle, because guess what? That out of service is going to be sent to the FMCSA. So if an auditor were to come in and take a look at and do an audit and say, hey, truck 123 had a brake issue you got put out of service for, and you never got it fixed. Oh no, we got it fixed. Well, where's the receipt for it? You just have to take our word. That doesn't work. So that could end in a critical violation from the FMCSA's part in your audit. So
because will some people keep running that truck and not fix it?
Well, you're not supposed to.
But that happens.
Oh yeah. Usually if you get put out of service, and what typically happens is you'll get put out of service at a weigh station, then the weigh station closes, and then the truck just magically disappears. Don't ask me how I know that, but I've seen that. But that's typically, and that's a major violation. Like if you get caught and you're out of service, you're in big trouble. But if you do get someone out there and they do fix it, and then they say, no, we got that fixed, they're going to want to see the invoice from that, or a receipt or something to show that, okay, that truck did get fixed. It's safe for the road now. So that needs to go in there as well.
Yeah, I can picture that. So you got the driver files, maintenance record files on equipment. Okay.
Yep.
Any others?
Well, and then, I mean, could be a whole new podcast topic, but you got your drug screens, your drug reports, so you got your pre-employment, which you have to do. And then you better make sure that you got your drivers in a random pool. You got a third-party consortium that should be doing that for you. If you don't know what a random pool is, you should probably look up a third-party consortium and get in.
But this is something those trucking company owners have to. I mean, they have to go out and figure this stuff out and set this up.
Yeah. So the nice thing is with the drug stuff, like I said,
this is a lot.
I know, and that's
like we don't have to do that here.
Exactly. And it is kind of funny, like how much actually, and that's why a lot of people complain about regulations. Like this is what they're talking about now. I'm saying I don't think this is necessarily bad to make sure that you don't have a guy high on cocaine behind your truck. Right. No, but there is a lot to do with it. And when I say a lot of times people just don't know what they don't know, this is what I'm talking about. Like we didn't know we had to have our drivers in a random pool, or we didn't know that our driver got into an accident and had to do a post-accident drug test, or, because there are certain situations where they don't have to do one, but there are certain situations where they do. How do you know which situation are you in? So there's just a lot of that. And like I said, third-party administrators, TPAs, you've probably seen that. They're there to help you with that. So you get into that, then you don't have to worry about the randoms. They'll just send you an email and send those guys in. But
that email comes from
the third-party consortium, or third-party administrator.
You got them hired, and then they random.
They're a separate third-party company. That's what they do. I highly recommend you get in that so you don't have to monitor it yourself. But then you got the whole clearinghouse then, so you got to run the queries, the new employment queries in the clearinghouse. And if the drug test does come back positive, you got to submit that to the clearinghouse. And then
who's the clearinghouse?
we don't have time for that, but it's the government Drug and Alcohol Administration. Basically, it is a database that they set up, because what was happening was you would have drivers failing drug tests and then just going to a new company. No, you failed. You can't drive.
Yeah.
But there was really nothing to stop them unless that new company called the previous one and said, hey, why is this guy no longer with you?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they set up the clearinghouse, and now that's a database. So if there's any drug or alcohol issues, it goes to the clearinghouse, good or bad, positive, negative drug tests are all in there. Are you checking that? You have to check that before you hire on a new driver. Okay, now this driver has an issue. Now he gets to go into the SAP program, the substance abuse professionals. Like, now he's got to return to work, drug test that needs to do. That's not the same as a pre-employment, not the same as a random. You see where I'm going? It can get really complicated really quickly. So
holy smokes.
That's why, like I said, I really enjoy working with the smaller companies, because this is a lot of stuff on their plate. And if I can help them out with taking some of that off their plate.
But you can put all this together pretty easy, or you already have.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like a lot. And when you're talking about it, it is a lot. But for guys like me who have solely focused on safety, this is what we do. I can't tell you what the rate from Dallas to Miami is right now. I can tell you probably don't want to go to Florida, but that's a whole different story. But I don't know rates. I don't know, insurance renewals. I don't know what the market's looking like for that, but I know safety. Like, I know what to do when it comes to safety things, good and bad. Like, do we need to fix this, or is this good? Is this compliant, or is this not compliant? That's the stuff that I know that I can help out with.
I know we were generally speaking, but any others, just kind of when you're talking about that safety program, we covered, driver files, vehicle files, drug and alcohol testing. Any others that?
The only other big one, and there's always probably a couple, and with the lights and cameras on, I know I'm probably forgetting something.
Yeah.
But the other big one that I like to preach to trucking companies is coaching, driver coaching. I think that is
part of your safety program?
As part of your safety program, because that is severely overlooked. Because here's the deal. If there's an issue with the driver and your first instinct is to fire them, honestly, insurance companies don't really like that. They don't like that driver turnover. Now, there are times when sometimes it's necessary to get rid of the driver.
Real quick, insurance companies, they're watching your driver turnover?
Yes. Yeah, they're looking at that kind of stuff. They don't like risky companies. They
can see how many drivers you've hired and fired?
I don't know exactly if they can see like the exact number of drivers, but they can see the turnover. Like, they see drivers added to the policy and drivers taken off the policy.
Oh,
so like
okay.
they can see it that way. And I don't know if they're keeping exact counts, because I'm not from the insurance world, but I know they're looking at it, and they want to make sure
throws up a red flag.
Yeah, it throws up a red flag. Like, if you have 10 drivers quit or get fired and no longer with you, like, they're going to wonder why, what happened. Like, what are you hiding from us? What did they do that maybe should have been reported that did get reported? It starts asking a lot of questions. So what I try to tell trucking companies is coach your drivers, correct them, build a relationship with your driver so that they know that you have their best interest in mind and that you want them to succeed in driving, just like, they then want you to succeed with the company, so they have a company to drive for. So that is often one of the most, a lot of times I see safety guys will just yell at the driver. The only time they talk to the driver is to discipline them. You're already doing it wrong, okay? You got to build that relationship with the driver so that when you do have to correct them on something, they're not thinking it's a personal attack, because sometimes it comes off that way. Drivers take a ton of pride in their ability to drive. And if you start telling them that they're doing it wrong, they're going to take a lot of offense to it. Unless you have a relationship built with them and you've already seen the good stuff that they've done. You've already acknowledged that they know how to drive. You already wished them a happy birthday and asked about their family, so you have that personal connection with them. And then say, hey man, I'm just saying, you're popping up on my high speed report a lot. You need to back her down a notch. 9 times out of 10, they'll take that correction and actually follow through with it, because they know that you're not trying to discipline them, you're trying to help them. And the more you can explain to a driver that your role as a safety guy isn't to discipline, but it's to ensure that they are successful as well as the company is successful, the more they're willing to help you out with that too.
I think this can get sticky too in this area of safety, because, there's so many different dichotomies of trucking companies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like I said, you could have, guy, he owns one truck and the rest are owner operators, or he owns a couple trucks and you got owner ops or lease purchase. I mean, there's just different, they're not all company. And I think of like, company driver, that guy is more of an employee versus an owner operator that, again, there's a reason why it's owner operator. Like, but like having that guy, be forceful or strict that guy on safety practices. I know it's necessary, but I'm saying like, that seems like it's got to get tough because it's like, hey dude, this is my truck.
Yeah.
Don't tell me how to drive it.
It can get tough, but if he's driving under your authority.
I know, that's what I'm saying. But I'm just saying, it's like, dude, I own this truck, man, not you. So
I actually had to one time tell the owner, you got to knock it off. That got to be an interesting conversation. And he was gracious with it, but I'm like, okay, I've got everyone down on their speed reports, but you're still really high. Can you knock it off a little bit? It's like, fine, whatever.
Yeah, real quick, and we'll kind of tail off here in just a second, but driver turnover is still pretty huge.
It is.
You said 90?
Depending on the study you look at, we're at 90 to 95%. Yeah. The one I was looked at was 94%.
So in our industry, we got, that's one full cycle of drivers coming through.
Pretty much. Yep. One on, one off. Yeah. It's crazy. And
why is that?
There's a couple factors to it, I think. One, there's always just going to be a certain amount of drivers that just are never satisfied. Like, it's just no matter what you do, there's always going to be, the grass is always greener somewhere else. Okay, there's nothing you can do about that. But I think there needs to be something, with that high number, we need to, as companies, start looking inward and going, what are we doing? Because you can't put 94% on the drivers. Like, what are we doing as a company? Are we hiring the right drivers? Is it a good fit for the company? A lot of times, and I get it, there's anxiety. If you have 5 trucks sitting up against the wall out there that are empty, there is a level of anxiety that comes with that because those trucks are actually costing you a ton of money just sitting there, not making anything. Quick, we got to get these things filled.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's exactly. But that's when you start making compromises that maybe you shouldn't, or you start saying things that maybe you shouldn't. Like, hey, you're talking to a driver, we'll pay you 70 cents a mile. And then under your breath, you say, if you qualify for all the safety bonuses. It's just, there's that bait and switch. I've seen it.
False expectations.
Exactly. Yeah. They just you say one thing, then you get them in and go, okay, yeah, you can make up to 70 cents per mile, but we're going to start you here. It's crazy that people still.
It's like the high school student going to the Army recruiter being like, hey, I want to fly a helicopter one day. He's like, sure, we can do that.
Sure.
Well, they don't tell them all the other things you're going to.
Come on in.
Yeah, we'll get you signed up.
Yeah. And in 7 to 10 years, you can fly that helicopter. Yeah, exactly. So it's like you got that piece of it. And then, maybe you got bad equipment, but you don't tell them that. So you come in, the driver's like, well, you told me I have 2024 or 2025 equipment. Well, we do, but you're going to be in the 2017. It's like, so is your hiring practices right? Are you running in the right lanes for the driver? Like, I know plenty of great drivers that it didn't work out with the company because they lived in, Omaha, Nebraska, but your lanes were Atlanta to Philadelphia. It was like, you're not going to get them home. You can't get them home. And then on top of that, home time. Are you promising every week, every other week, and then not fulfilling that? If you really want to have good high driver turnover, screw with their pay and screw with their home time. And if you do that, you're not going to keep a driver to save your life. And I think that's what's contributing to that high number.
Wow. Real quick, just to kind of end on this, for those out there that are interested in your service, we're going to put it in the episode notes for people that are watching this podcast. But you have a website,
I do.
Active on LinkedIn.
Yep. Wattsman.com. That's my website. WATTSMEN.com. And yeah, LinkedIn, I think I'm on most of socials, but LinkedIn is probably the one I'm most active on. I'm just, I'm a small crew, and sometimes social media gets to be a full-time gig, and oofta, I don't understand half of it. So LinkedIn, I know I'm good on that. I'm very responsive, but yeah, hit me up. You can sam@wattsman.com is my email. All that stuff's on my website.
Yeah. I just want to reiterate, because I feel so passionate about what you're doing out there. It's not as hard as you think.
No.
Like, this isn't something that's going to be necessarily a brain suck. I'm going to be stuck in an office. You're going to be sitting there. I mean, I can think in my mind, you're like this auditor coming in, like, okay, where are these reports? Where are these reports? And you're sitting there, I have no idea. I don't even want to mess with this. But you can, like I said, it's not as hard as you think.
No, it takes time and effort. Yeah. It's not even expensive.
Yeah. Like, we didn't even cover this, but like the safety part, just I mean, just for safety and livelihood, but just the money you can save in all these areas. And that's for another topic. But like, I just feel like, it doesn't matter. I mean, you could be making $5 a mile over here, but if you're dumping it out the back on high insurance premiums and practices, like your net is.
Yeah. I don't know if there's ever really truly a study out there, but I would be very interested to see, like, okay, we're going to spend $5,000 on safety. How much does that save us on the back? I mean, it's probably.
I know I asked you that earlier. I was like, man, if you could put numbers, but I mean, I know it's true, but it's like, man, I mean, even if you can, we were talking earlier, some of these trucking companies, their insurance premiums, like, man, if they just did a couple steps, they could be saving some of them.
Like six figures.
Six figures. Yeah. And we're talking like a 30, 40 truck operator. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a big bonus. That's a big salary. That's profit back to the owner's pocket if he does it right. So, hope to see you at our conference coming up.
Sure.
In 2026, I think it's going to be awesome. We haven't talked in detail yet, but man, would love to have you on stage there. Maybe even some breakout sessions for our companies to learn more about what you're doing. And man, thanks for making it down to the Ozarks.
Thank you very much for having me. I truly appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it, Sam. God bless you.
Yep.